Welcome to a Delco Nerd Network hot take. Ladies and gentlemen, if you have never seen a hot take before, well, it's where a few friends get in a basement. We like to give our thoughts, give our opinions on a TV show, movie, or a game. Today, it's going to be a game, and that game is Dragon Age: The Veilguard. Here with me to discuss, I have a very special guest. With me to review The Veilguard, I have Dragon Age expert and all-around BioWare content creator, Ashe, a.k.a. Lady Insanity. Ashe, welcome to DNN. Thanks for joining me. And
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to your expertise because, like I was telling you over email, I'm like, my co-host didn't play it. So it's like, I can't really have a conversation about a game in depth with somebody who actually knows nothing. Like gameplay wise, from a surface level, sure. But I'm a big Dragon Age fan and I want to get in depth. So
absolutely. It really is a big game. So even to just play Veilguard versus the rest of the entire series, it's like, no, there's too much. There's too much.
I mean, just going off of that, when you say it's a big game, when embargoes lifted and reviews are coming out, and I was hearing people say they beat the game in 35 hours, I was like, huh?
How?
And especially after my 102-hour playthrough, I'm mystified. I'm like, did you even get a good ending? Did everyone? I don't even know if everyone could die, but I'm like, what happened? What kind of ending did you get?
But everyone can die, but yeah.
Okay. So I'll throw it over to you first. What did you think of the Veilguard?
So I'm very biased. I'm just going to put that out there right now because I was
podcast. So.
Yeah. No. So I was on the community council for it. So I have seen it for years.
Okay.
So obviously I'm going to have a much jaded opinion on it. And I was just kind of thinking before this podcast, if I were to express a more review accurate take, it's like, well, what do I think about it? And it's like, as far as a video game is concerned, I like it a lot. I think it's great. As far as a Dragon Age game, there's multiple layers of whether I like it or not.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I like a lot of parts of it. But to say whether or not it's a really good Dragon Age game is really dependent on well, for me, I've been playing it since the beginning. And that's even me trying to say it now. It's like, oh man, this is complicated.
No, I have the same exact. That is my opinion. I'm like, I really like certain parts of the game. And I really don't like other parts of the game. And it's not a hate or a love. It's a like and don't like. I don't really like just to get nitpicky, the fact that they changed the Grey Warden's regalia from 2 and Inquisition's look made me really upset. I was like, what the hell? Because I feel like for Origins, it was whatever. And then in 2, they sort of okay, here's what they look like. Here's the blue with they all have this variation of that blue tunic thing, and they carry that over in Inquisition. And then in this game, it's nah. And I'm like, why? But I think there's a lot of nitpick about the combat, but I kind of like it. But it's got the live service stink all over it.
Right.
Yeah, I really can feel it,
Yeah. It is satisfying in a way. I actually really like the combat for me because I liked a lot of both I never played Warrior. I'll actually put that on there. I rarely have ever played Warrior.
That's funny. That's all I played.
Yeah. So for Mage, it was really satisfying. A lot of bright lights, a lot of colors, and totally ADHD coded. It was great. For Rogue, it was also satisfying for me, but it was also I like Dragon Age 2, so I like the whole absurdity of it combat wise. So for me, it worked out a lot, even though that there's a lot of jumping, there's a lot of acrobatics and all that. It made sense if you're playing in Even Crow, but for anyone else, it's kind of this is a little bit much.
Yeah,
just a smidge.
I fought with the Warrior. I felt they were too physical, if that makes any sense. Too much punching, too much jumping in the air, and making an area effect. I didn't really like the abilities that were doing that. Like, okay, the drop kick was cool, but it's like I don't want to play that kind of warrior in like a role play sense. I played a human. I was Lord of Fortune, and I went to what's the Lord of Fortune?
Vervain?
No, the in the warrior tree, the bottom one is like that specialization, whatever the Lord of Fortune one is called. That's the one I did because it's like, okay, that makes sense. I'm gonna go this route, like immersion kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I was just like, man, I wonder how rogue and mage play the whole time I was playing. It's not that I regretted my decision. I thought it was fine, but I was just like, I wonder how they feel compared to warrior.
It's again, I think it really depends on whether you came from like Inquisition or you came from Origins or whatnot. Because for me, it was much closer to 2. But whenever you say it had the live service stank on it, it's like, yeah, it kind of did. Because it took you out just a smidge. And by smidge, I mean a lot whenever you're playing it because it has too much flair. And they joked about it a lot in the Intivan Crow setup. But for anyone else who's role playing as any of the other ones, like if you're playing Mornwatch or whatnot, the stylization of all those moves is just strange.
Yeah, I mean, even for Grey Warden, I would say the same thing. I mean, again, even for me, like I was like, I just don't feel like I would be flying up in the air and like drop kicking everything off ledges. Like it just, it's funny you say that because I think you put it better in a better way than I was going to say it. It's just like, yeah, it doesn't feel correct. I think that's something the Veilguard kind of fucks up on like a pretty big level is like my Grey Warden point. I feel like there's a lot of consistencies in the world that just like don't match. The Antivan Crows I felt were just kind of strange. They just did not feel like what they were depicted in Origins when you met Zevran and he was talking about them. And then like, in other parts of the game, like I'm like, all of a sudden they're like, I mean, maybe I didn't read this into the Antivan Crows, but like they lead Antiva, like they're a huge part of like the political, situation there. And it seems like they were way too nice for what they are. I'm like, why are they so like, they act like royalty. I'm like, I don't really get it. I feel like I was like missing something or like something was changed in the writing for them here.
Yeah, a lot of it was so like in the books, it kind of goes into it, and in the books and comics, I should be more precise. Because the Antivan Crows came from a history where they were the only people that were going to help the citizens. So I feel like the writers really went back to those roots because it's very much Taya and Viago had this whole. That's where they came from. That's their interpretation of what the Crows should be, how they should be led. Right. And for them to be leaderless because Katharina and all of them were gone, it's just kind of like, well, that's how they were. But it was too much emphasis on how they were versus historically what we know in present day. And if you were playing Origins or if you read the comics, like there's too much countering perspectives. And it kind of sucks because they did really good in the books. I love Taya. I love Yago and like how they wrote them. But it's like,
are they into Winter Nights? I didn't read that.
So they're into Winter Nights. They're in the comics as well. So they're great. And they have a lot of pizzazz. Their stories are absolutely fantastic. But obviously, whenever you're dealing with a video game, they're on screen. So everyone's going to have a different interpretation of how they were read. Right?
Yeah. And, I felt like that also kind of went into, like, the first time I get to Treviso, like, I like the city. It's cool. It's very Venetian-inspired, Venice. Like, you can tell there's a lot of culture here. But, like a lot of the other locations, I feel like I'm not really in it. Like, enough to really, like, understand, like, this city. Like, in 2, I lived and breathed Kirkwall. And I feel like that identity with Hawk makes a lot of sense. But I don't feel like I really know Minrathous from just being in Docktown. I feel like Docktown wasn't a good representation of all the years I've been hearing about the Tevinter Imperium and Minrathous. So it's like, I don't feel like this is it. like something's a litlittle off here. And I like going to Weishaupt, and if you're listening to the spoilers, be careful. Going to Weishaupt for that, that end of that chapter, or the end of that, I think it was Act 2, whenever that happens, when the siege of Weishaupt. I'm like, damn, I wish I could just be here, not during a battle, and take this in. Because I've heard so much about this place since Origins, and now that I'm here, I wish it wasn't just an action set piece.
Mm-hmm. Which was, in my eyes, it was really cool to see it as a set piece, but I wish we at least visit there beforehand.
Yeah, for sure.
Because getting to see it is a whole different thing of getting to experience how the wardens vibed, right? Like how they were doing things on a day-to-day basis.
Right.
I mean, you kind of see that whenever they're in the new village, but not really.
Yeah, I was like, not really. Yeah, it's like they're protecting a village. It's not like it's like a forward operating base, from the sense that it's like a choke point for them to fight the Darkspawn. And I had another point about the Grey. Yeah, you don't really see the Grey Wardens from that angle ever. Even in Inquisition, it's cool. Adamant Fortress is cool, but I still don't really know what the Wardens are like from the HQ perspective.
Right.
3 games in, we're and I'm even thinking about back to Origins. I was like, wait, what happened? I know there were the Wardens from Orlais, I'm pretty sure weren't allowed in Ferelden or something like that. And I'm like, what, where was everybody? I'm I'm sitting here thinking about it. And I'm like, what was the reasoning, the plot reasoning? Yeah. And
it feels like the game tends to self-contain a lot of its lore versus the previous games, right? So it's kind
Veilguard,
of
yeah, I get what you mean there.
It's good for the direction that they were trying to roll with, but it's disorienting, obviously, if you're coming in from the other games.
Yeah, I hate talking from the perspective of is it good for new players? And it's as a fan, I shudder to even those words even come out of my mouth, because I'm I've been so invested in the series for a long time, and it's no, it's there's so much going into this. It's hard to be Veilguard is a great jumping on point. Inquisition is probably that, but Veilguard, I feel it's pretty loaded from Inquisition and Trespasser especially. There's so much going on. I feel if you don't have that precursor knowledge of coming into this game, it's just not going to hit as hard, because every time Solas was on screen, oh my God, I could not get enough of it. I was
just screaming oh my God, he's right there.
Yeah, I forget his voice actor's name, but I felt the acting and the depiction of him in this game, obviously, given what's going on, everything is amped up, but I just felt every word that came out of his mouth was really important. I was really locked into what was going on with Solas, and I'm definitely more of a save Solas kind of person. So I was very okay, nah, this is okay. He's not playing us, and then it's shit.
So even I did not have any knowledge about the eventual betrayal at all. Whenever I was part of the council, but honestly, I was waiting for it the entire time. I was just he's gonna mess us up. He's gonna mess us up.
Yeah.
And whenever the switch happened, I was I knew it, but I didn't want to
believe it.
I just didn't want him to do that. Just once, but no.
And that's really something I love about Veilguard. The story is really fucking good, especially the last 6 hours. Are fantastic. When you think back to Dragon Age Origins and 2 and Inquisition, it's okay, Origins has a really good ending, the Battle of Demerin and the lead up to all that, and the Dark Ritual, whether you take it or not. And 2 has a very good ending as well, with the Mage Templar War being sparked. But Inquisition's ending, I was thinking about it. I'm what even was the ending? I remember killing the dragon and Crifius, but I'm no, was there more? I'm But I feel like Veilguard, they really like locked in on being as bombastic as possible, and I felt like everything mattered, sort of not in the same exact way, but like a Mass Effect 3 ending kind of way, where it's like, this is do or die, all or nothing. Like, here we go,
Yeah, and it's kind of funny in a lot of ways, because it definitely hit the same way that, I don't know if you played it, but Mass Effect Andromeda's ending worked.
Yes, yeah, I did.
Which was clean. It was like everyone was involved. Everyone you knew that was that came in the story along the way had a purpose, was involved, and like that's why I really liked Veilguard's ending, because I felt it hit on every, like, these people have been with you the entire time. You're not just gonna have them shoved off and choose your 3 companions and that's it, which is Inquisitions. And I felt like I was screaming into the void about a lot of it, because I was like, why are we just chasing Corypheus? What is this ending?
Yeah, right. It's like, all right, let's go. Let's go. Yep. Let's go fight them.
Just climb the hill. We'll get there eventually.
Yeah, like going to your point about Mass Effect, like the assigning people to do things, I thought was like, obviously, like they've done this before. This isn't like anything new, but I feel like they take a different direction, especially when the fact that you pick someone to die. And for me, it was Harding. And I'm like, if I would have picked Davrin, I would have been pissed. Because I think Harding going out the way she did was like very poetic for that character, considering all she's been through with Inquisition and into this game. I'm like, yeah, very poetic. Yes, like I like the death. I think when a character dies and a player likes it, or like they feel good about it, that's good writing. I feel like I was not disappointed in that choice, even though I just killed a character. But like if Davrin did it, I would have been like, okay.
So I felt a very different, very, very, very different whole thing for Davrin, because I got him killed, because I thought he was the most competent, and the way that they wrote him during that entire, like, leading up to that scene, whenever he does the sacrifice, was very much he has been prompting himself the entire time to do so ever since he messed up initially with Gillinan, right? So for me, that was even more devastating. And admittedly, I was romancing him for most of the game. So that also added on to the whole, like, oh my God, effect. But like, I was, it feels really twisted to say it, but I felt very satisfied by that ending.
Yeah, I feel like if you romanced him, for sure. Yeah, that adds like an extra layer to it that I didn't have. I romanced Nev and was a bit disappointed in that, but we'll talk about romances as a whole later. But yeah.
Yeah, it was very much for me, even though that I was supremely upset that he was dead, it really made sense in his arc leading up to it. And I was, of course, sad for him, and then also this on, but like, it was like this man has been leading from his by his convictions the entire way through, and it was a very satisfying end. For Harding, I was like, I don't know.
Do you like Harding?
Like, I love Harding. Okay. I really do. It's very much she got her powers. Yeah, she's in her powers and she's in her effect, but she wasn't, to me, more competent than Davrin in that moment. I needed him to do that mission. And I didn't know, obviously, that he was going to end up sacrificing himself, but it just seemed like he was on. He was locked in. He knew what he was doing. That's how I approached that quest.
Yeah, I feel like I kind of picked her as like sort of like, I know what you've been through and I've seen where you come from kind of thing, and I know you can do this. Like, I feel like she's like, when you think back on it, a big part of like the Inquisition as an organization's like success, like she's there, like she's scouting ahead and like she's like applauding the Inquisitor's course through that whole game. But like, you don't really talk to her in like a friendly kind of sense, at least from what I remember. It's been a while since I played DAI, but I don't really remember there being like a ton of, let's get to know Scout Harding. Like, there, like, you don't really know her. She works for you, kind of thing. And in this game, like, it's a very opposite kind of relationship where you get to know her as a person. I think there's a bit of a personality change in her that I don't know if I love, but you know, I guess it's there. A lot more bubbly for sure. But like even given the situation, I'm like, you probably shouldn't be. You know, it's probably, like the situation's probably a lot worse than it was in Inquisition. I don't know if it's like you know.
Yeah, for a lot of her personality, I mean, obviously, some people have noted that, oh, she was supposed to be Dagna first, and that was the original character. But, like, Harding had a very specific arc. I can't really go into it, but, like, the thing, and they kind of scaled back with it, with, like, showing off her personality and how she is as a person. Because, I mean, she is, like, very troubled throughout the course of things, and you get to see that whenever you read like the comics and to an extent the books, because it's like she always has to like be on top of her game,
right?
But also like in some moments in Veilguard you can see that she's just overly self-conscious. She's a people pleaser. She has a lot of like, she has to put up a mask in order to just function. Veilguard ended up not really displaying that, but like I wish we saw a little bit more of it, but it just never came to be.
You know, it's funny you say that because I think that's a problem with every character except Emmerich. I feel like they're all very surface level. There's something there, but we're not being shown it. I also felt like that's why like it's the weakest set of companions as a whole. I'm just like, nobody stood out to me. Like, and like, you know, I think Harding was like a character who should have stood out given, you know, all the lore they were bringing from the Descent, from Dragon Age Inquisition and all that stuff. And like, you know, there's a lot of deep lore there that, you know, they have a few lines of dialogue about, but like they don't really do anything with. They don't really do anything with Nev. They don't really like Emmerich. I feel like his story is very good, and I was like, wow, this is great. Even Davrin, Tosh, like, oh, not Tosh actually. I actually like Tosh's story as a whole, but like Davrin just kind of like, oh, like, you know, kind of interesting with the Gloom Hunter being like a warden from the second Blight or whenever or maybe it was like the fourth, whenever the Griffins disappeared. Like, that's cool. We didn't dig deep enough though. Like I feel like there was more there, but we didn't do anything with it. Wrap that around to talk about really quickly, like what this game went through and the fact that it got here. And it's honestly, for a game that was like two different games, it came together pretty fucking well. I mean, even like as a game, like I didn't experience. I played on Xbox. Not a lot of bugs, not a lot of glitches, nothing like Mass Effect Andromeda. But we definitely have to talk about Joplin and Morrison. But to like see what it went through, reading the art book and kind of knowing that beforehand, but getting a more in-depth look, it's like I don't know how this didn't come out worse. It's very interesting.
Yeah, it's very much a So, like, it stinks in a lot of ways how it ended up, because obviously it got rebooted. It had to go through a mess of leadership changes, right? And it's really unfortunate how it ended up, but I'm really glad that it ended up the way it did.
Yeah, I would agree.
It could have, and it almost did multiple times end up worse. And as far as the characters are concerned, I mean, I personally love the companions, but also that comes with the context of everything that happened in the books, everything that happened in the comics. That's not going to happen for most of the people who played the game, right? So they're not going to go and do required reading, right? But the thing is, like, the writers had the ability in those books, in those comics, to actually share more stories about, and the short stories. I forgot about that one. That the short, a bunch of the characters like Evka and them were in the short stories and gave way more story, way more context to everything. And the devs had the option to do it, but it's like, if it's not in the game, that doesn't help.
Yeah,
right?
like it might as well not even be a thing if it's not in the game. Just to throw an example that had this issue, Final Fantasy 15 did a lot of this. They had an anime that introed all the characters that nobody watched. A pretty mediocre but good-looking CGI film that was like a prequel to the game. It's like, you got to put this in the game. You can't expect everybody to go outside the game and explore your world via a movie or a show or short stories or whatever. Like, I like it. It's supplemental. It's cool. It's there. But like, you're right. It needs to be in the game. And it's like, oh, well, like I don't know what the writers have been saying since launch. I haven't really seen any of that. And I know there's, a lot of critique of the writing in this game. And I personally am probably one of those people to an extent where it's like, I love the writing in some places, and other places I just think it's like, what the hell are we doing? But yeah,
it's very much like a budget thing. Yeah.
You think?
Oh, it's okay. I shouldn't dwindle it down to budget, but it's more on the lines of like, when they moved from Joplin to Morrison, obviously a whole kind of like how they approached finishing this game was changed. And the writing had to be overhauled so many times. So it's just kind of like,
right. You're writing a totally different story, two different times.
And you have to speed things up because it's like, we shifted away from making it totally about Solus. Now it's totally about the Veilguard. But are you going to be able to execute on that? That's a whole different thing. Short stories help a lot, but you really need that in the game. And putting everything behind the codex is like, tends to be really ineffective.
Even for somebody who reads them, daunting. Like, I can only pay attention and retain so much of it. Like, I like to read that stuff, but at the same time, it's like, ugh. I got like 7 to read. It's like, okay.
Yeah. It's like the book club stuff, right? Like, the book club was in the codex. We know that the Veilguard met up with the book club, but it's like, I didn't see that.
You know what's funny? I'm not sure if you've ever heard of this game or played this game. Marvel's Midnight Suns by Firaxis. It's very much like an XCOM game mixed with like Persona. Combat is like XCOM when you're like, it's very tactical. There's cards involved and you're moving characters around a field and they hit certain ways and that kind of thing. I'm not an XCOM expert, but when you go back after missions, the Midnight Suns is like your magical sort of like cultish characters within Marvel. So they're all like kind of like, they live together in a house and they have relationships and some of them like each other and some of them don't like each other and they have a book club. But you see it and you get to participate in it. And like, you do really feel like you're kind of one of the gang. Like, and like, that's what Veilguard's trying to do, but like, they don't show you any of that. They just, here's the codex about it. It's like, well, I think it would have been cool if I would have got to participate in a book club and, in Midnight Suns, like, you could choose dialogue options between like, I didn't read it, or like you make fun of something, or you take it seriously. Like, I would have loved that dialogue to be able to do that. Cause again, you're fleshing out characters. You're getting to see more of these people, as I feel like the game wants you to see them as.
Yeah. That is really the thing, seeing people as people, because it tends to be, and I think you mentioned this with them, you mentioned it with Emmerich, where it's like you see him as a person and the way that he approaches everything. He's very close with Rook, like you could see it. And the game presents him that way in a lot of ways. For the other ones, they do, but it's also like, am I your friend or am I your boss? That happened a lot for me, personally. Even though, like, I was romancing Lucanus, and I was just like, I mean, yeah, there's a lot of sweet talk in like the banter and like all that, but in truth, like, I felt very detached in a lot of ways, but very close with them on a boss level.
I think I have a theory about Lucanus. I have to believe they cut something with Spite. They do nothing with that. Nothing. It's like, Spite, let's talk about it and how it's there, but like, no, we're not going to get into it. It's like, what? I mean, like, look what we did with Anders. I mean, they did Anders and Justice really well in Dragon Age 2. It's like Anders talks about it a lot. And like, obviously a lot, it's kind of different because I was thinking about it this morning. I'm like, well, Justice was with Anders for like 4 or 5 years. I'm trying to think of the length in between the end of like Awakening and DA2. Like, there's a lot of years there that Lucanus doesn't have, but still, like, they still explore. Like, I don't think that's probably not a good reason. You can write around the time to give reason as to why Spite might come out more or do more things or interact with Rook more, but they don't.
Yeah.
And ultimately, it's like, when you get Hero of the Veilguard status with him, he's like, yeah, I'll handle it.
Yeah.
You'll handle it. Okay, like, that's it. That's all. We're not going to get like, we're going to be in unison or we're going to totally detach. Like, that was the plot right there, but we didn't do that.
Yeah. The writer didn't. Personally, I really liked Lucanus, and I really think he was written well. But at the same time, his writer was laid off last year. Wait, no, 2 years ago. So there's that context.
That makes a lot of sense.
I
like
I'm trying to choose
too.
my words carefully here.
Yeah, no, it's not like I don't like Lucanus. I don't really think I dislike any of the characters. I feel like a lot of them are surface level, so the game isn't like enabling me to love them. Like, I like Tali from Mass Effect, or Alistair or Isabella, or like most of the other characters from Dragon Age. Like I like this style, and I thought that was cool, and cool to get like a different kind of Antivan Crow in the mix compared to Severin or something like that. But yeah, it's just like I think that makes a lot of sense putting 2 and 2 together, that it feels like just something fell flat. Like, they didn't finish it. Like, they were getting there, but like it never came to.
Yeah. And obviously, it's kind of like a weird situation with you can see at the seams like different parts just like not finished, right? And I mean, I don't want to cast any shade on that, because I think the writers did a great job. It's also like how much time they were actually allotted to do specific scenes or do certain things. If we had the full 10 years, man, I really wish I could have seen that game.
Yeah.
I really wish.
Yeah. And I'm on Twitter. I saw the conversations that were going on, and I even got curious. I'm like, who wrote Veilguard? Like, let me actually go look. And I was very surprised to see that, like, I think there is one totally new person, but everyone else worked on Dragon Age in one shape or another before this. There's a different
Dragon
lead.
Age or Mass Effect.
Yeah. I think Patrick Weeks is the lead, and he wasn't beforehand, but he was on every other game. Correct, I think? Yeah.
Yeah. David Gator was the lead for Inquisition. And yeah, he stepped up for Veilguard.
Yeah. And I maybe that's the issue. I mean, if anyone who's worked for a job, a boss could make or break your team in a matter of ways. I've been very kind of cautious to talk about Tosh, because I have some thoughts about them, but I don't know. Sometimes I think I'm like, is that right to say that? But what do you think about Tosh?
I love Tosh. I'm going to sound like a broken record when I'm just like, I love all the characters, but I really do. Tosh was like literally the first person I ever tried romancing. And I'm talking about like back when I was on the council. So like Tosh, oh God, like I think most of the conversation around Tosh has been, I'm just gonna say it straight up.
Yeah, say what you gotta say.
Most of the conversation with Tosh has been completely skewed and mishandled just because of people not getting the right information before the game released. And it's so frustrating to see, because Tosh is a great character, a great person, but at the same time, it's like we can't even have a proper conversation about Tosh without someone yelling about, politics.
Right.
So,
right. And I think, Mass Effect and Dragon Age, they've been exploring LGBT characters for like ever. So this is nothing new. But, non-binary, I'm I don't want to say it's the first. It might be, but I'm not sure. But not on the level Tosh is. And when we're talking about them and I'm exploring, the personal stories, and I'm like, okay, like I kind of like this. And then we get to, the point where Tosh changes her pronouns. And I think my issue with it is it's written too realistically that I can't buy it, that it's in a fantasy game. I'm like, I don't know, like, especially with them being Quinari. I think there was a real opportunity there to really get cultural with it and kind of create, which they do. Their mom talks about it. Uses a word from the Quinari language about being non-binary, something like that. I feel like there was an opportunity to really flesh that out and make it, what does a non-binary person look like in a fantasy world? And I don't think we got that, and I think that's the problem.
Yeah.
It's just too real. And I'm not a person who goes to games to escape, even though maybe I could, that could qualify, but I think a lot of people do play video games to escape, and I feel like that's not very escapey, if that makes any sense.
No, I get what you mean, because it's very much a which for me it really added onto the whole conversation of, when we think about Dragon Age Origins versus this game, like the way Origins would never have anything that was within the current vernacular, right? Like we wouldn't say a lot of terms in that game because it was more archaic. And it's like, well, okay, like we're 30 years down the line. Is this what, not 30, but like we're many years down the line now. Yeah. Like, is it okay to use these very modern terms in a video game? And it's like, for me, I kind of had to like wrestle with the idea. I was like, could there been a more elegant way of presenting any of this? Probably, but at the same time, this is very real for a lot of people. Like,
sure, I bet, yeah.
Personal friends that are like, this is literally how I came out. So it's like, yeah.
I guess for somebody who is straight, cisgendered, like, obviously I can't relate to this at all. So, and I guess that's why I was looking for it. It's like, I can't identify with this. So it's a little tough for me to get immersed in what I know is an actual real problem. Yeah.
It's, and I feel like I as time goes on, I'm just kind of like, I'm fine with it at this point, because when it comes down to it, there's going to be a lot of people who look at games and it's like, this is a commodity. This is supposed to be a product that I'm supposed to consume. But then there's me on the other side who's like, I'm part of those people who looks at art as art. So, and people making art for the sake of having a conversation, like showing themselves and like, this is who I want to present as, this is who I am, this is a part of my soul. So for me, it's like, you know what, do your thing. It's fine. Like, right? Just, I hope you have the budget and resources to actually be able to execute it in a way where the way that you want to present a game is actually full-fleshed.
Yeah. And it's worth bringing up of like, when did Tosh start getting written? Like, were they a byproduct of Joplin or Morrison? Maybe not. I know there's some early concept of her in the art book, which if you're watching this and you're as into this conversation as we are, you need to get that. It's like very important. I almost thought it was like, this is required reading for not only this podcast, but the game. I think to understand like where it's come from and even like where the characters have come from, because Tosh first was like a rogue. And I love their design at first. I was like, oh, I kind of wish they went with the original look. I hate the look of the Quinaris in this game. I'm like, oh my God. Like,
I loved Inquisition's version, so that, yeah, I feel that.
Yeah, I was just like, they look like humans with like just like horns on their heads. Like it's a bit weird. Like, and it's like I wanted to be a Quinari too, and I'm just like, I can't get behind it. like I'm just like, I you know what's funny? I watched your video when you made the Aeroshock, and I'm like should I just like follow her video and just like make that like to like appease like what I want a Quinari to look like and stuff like that. But you know,
for me, that video was very much I gotta do it, but at the same time, it was like I had to push the character creator in order to get to like even that. And obviously, other people have made other Quinaris that look absolutely awesome, like freaking sick. But at the same time, it's like you were pushing it to the limits of what it can do, and it's like I wish I could go further with the horn placement and everything, but I don't think they had the time to even do that.
What did you think of the character creator? I really liked it personally. I think it's one of the best. I think it's like if you're playing D&D, you want to like make an elf or a human, this is like a good thing to do. And I love how they released it separately to do that. But honestly, I spent 4 hours creating my character, and I was very indecisive about it because I don't think I knew what I wanted to do, and that was a problem because I kept changing my mind. But I really liked the character creator, but what I didn't like about it was the 3-face thing. I think I'm like, can I just like start with the 1? Can I not have to do like an amalgam of 3? What did you think?
For me, I started to realize. So at launch, I was bugging certain things on purpose in order to change the way that the morph would work. But the thing is that you have to have that knowledge of like, oh, okay, like you can do 137, but at the same time, if you do this certain thing with a certain body type, then it changes 137 versus you this body type versus another body type. But it's like you have to know that, right?
Yeah, I couldn't figure. I was trying to figure it out, and like you're saying, like I couldn't figure it out. Like I was just like, I'm not getting part of this, and I really wish I would. My rook was, like ironically, I think I like ended up making them sort of like an Egyptian looking person, and then I ended up rolling Lords of Fortune, so that makes a lot of sense. So I was plenty immersed in my character, you know.
Nice.
And I was thinking about doing a ward, and I'm like, I bet lore wise and story wise being a warden is really cool because they're involved a lot, but I was like, well, I already did, we already did warden in Origins, and I kind of just wanted to see something different, so that's kind of why I went Lords of Fortune.
Yeah, I've wanted to do Antivan Crow ever since Origins, so I was like, no, I gotta do it. Yeah. I wanted to play as someone who is from Deventer, but I'm like, the moment I got Antiva, I was like, there's Antiva is home. I can't do this.
Yeah, I thought about Shadow Dragons too, and I'm kind of glad I didn't go that route from I didn't love the Shadow Dragon faction. It just seemed kind of boring. One of the things about like Lords of Fortune, Shadow Dragons, Veil Jumpers, they all kind of seemed, the new factions seemed a bit off, and I wasn't sure why. There was something about them that just seemed kind of thrown together. I can't really like explain it more. There's something about all three of those that felt off, and I don't know why. I just felt like they were really just like placed in there. Like even though Veil Jumper and Shadow Dragon are really prevalent through the story, there's just something there. I don't know.
For me, I have asked this exact question to myself. I think for me, the reason why I liked certain ones versus other ones was a matter of how they had power in the game, or in Thetis rather. Because for Antiva Crows, they have a very long history. They are embedded in politics versus, and like with Grey Wardens also, they are embedded in politics. That's why I like them a lot. Right. But whenever it comes to the Shadow Dragons, right? Like they are more of a newer faction. So they don't really have, it's not that they don't have the chops in order to fight. It's that if they were an even power versus the Tevinter mages, if they were more established and that these are direct factions and they're not so, I don't know how to describe it. Like the idea of them being a shadow organization is great, but they did not have the chops, like the teeth compared to the strands.
Yeah. Yeah,
if they had strands and shadow dragons in one, oh my god, that would be great.
Yeah, I think like as you were saying it, I was kind of thinking to myself, well, you have a bias toward other things from in deeper in the series, because I do too. You know, like I felt that exact same thing. It's like I in Teven Crow, I just don't think that's like my vibe for a character wise. But I was like, you know, I considered like every single one. But I kind of settled on Lords of Fortune because I just finished up Tomb Raider 2, the remastered one, so I was kind of like vibing with that. I was like, yeah, this seems cool. And I didn't know Isabella was at the head of that faction, which was cool. But I kind of wish, again, it's like, I wish we saw more of Isabella. Like, you know,
right?
like
outside of the arena.
yeah, like just stands in like the Halls of Valor or whatever it's called. I like Dorian's inclusion. That felt good. And oh god, having the Inquisitor was like, I was like, fuck yeah. I was like, where is he? Bring him out. Yeah, I was like, I want to see him, you know. I was really upset they didn't have him fight, or him or her or whoever, you know, whoever your Inquisitor is, have them fight. At the end, I was kind of pissed. You know, they just show up in their like the pajama clothes. I'm like, what the fuck, man?
The damn pajamas recurs forever. My god.
I was kind of okay with it, like when they were in the bar. But then I'm like, oh, I can get these. I'm like, no, I can't wear them. It breaks my immersion. But I really wish, like I had Lavellen. I had an elf warrior. I wish they would they put on their Inquisitor armor and they fought, and like, you know, not that they needed to be in your party, but I feel like there could have been a little bit more there with them. But I love the back and forth, and it seems like there's like a friggin' crazy shit going on in Ferelden and Orlais, in that area, and I'm like, can I see it? Like, you know, can I see something? Like, where's
Orlais
Hawk?
is burning?
Where is everybody? Where's Alistair? Like, you know, like that was kind of my thing with the Inquisition too, of like, you know, just wanting the fan service moments of like, why can't all my characters just like show up because like they need to? I was the same way in this game. It's like, you know, like I feel like, you know, in 2 they loved including like, oh, Alistair shows up in Kirkwall for like that one quest, and Liliana does. Even outside the ending, I think it's a DLC quest if I forget, with Nightingale. Yeah, and it's just like they like doing that there, and I kind of wish we got more of that besides Doreen and Isabella. Am I forgetting anyone? I think it's just those two, right?
I mean, you mean for Veilguard specifically, or like?
Yeah, for Veilguard specifically, returning companions, not like Shaper, Volta, like not those kind of Easter eggs, but like, you know, actual companions. Coming over. Yeah.
I mean Morrigan, but
Morrigan.
that's a whole different.
That kind of just upset me about how little she does, and I can't go up to her and have like a Dragon Age Inquisition dialogue with her of like asking her all these things. It's like there's not enough of that in Veilguard, and I think that's like maybe that we can chalk that up to they didn't have time to write all the stuff to talking to even your own companions. Like I can't go up to Balara and talk about the Veil Jumpers. And I was curious about her from like, is she Dalish? What's going on with her? What, like, who is she? Like who are the rest of the Veil Jumpers? Are you guys like a Dalish clan that like decided to, you know, you were near Arlathan and you decided to be like essentially like, you know, treasure archivists? Like what's going on here? Like I feel like we're missing a lot of stuff. And that brings me to a point I'm thankful I remembered, is there's a lot of Dragon Age stuff that just doesn't come up in this game. There's no Templars. There's not a lot of blood magic, not a lot of talk about blood magic. There's not a lot of talk about like a lot of Dragon Age-y things, abominations, for one. Like I'm really surprised, this is going into another tangent, but like with Rook's dialogue, like why can't you dislike Lucanus? Like you could hate Anders for like being this like abomination thing. It's like, ew, you know? And it's interesting.
You can even hate Emmerich for being involved with so much like dead stuff, essentially.
Yeah, like
and
you
it's
don't
just like
understand it. But I don't really love how Rook's written. It's clear that Rook is not you. They're a character, which I'm fine with, but I don't think that's Dragon Age.
I feel like it got scaled back in a lot of ways. And I mean, It did though, but when it comes to Rook, yeah, it definitely is, and it's unfortunate because it's like, yeah, I wish Rook was a little bit more of a blank slate, so you could really hone in on things. And it's weird because I actually don't usually like blank slates that hard, but for a lot of it, like, yeah, we definitely could have approached Blood Magic a little bit like more solidly outside of Lucanus's, like, what's her name? Oh my God, I'm forgetting her name.
Yeah. What's it? Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, her. Miss, I decide to bathe in blood because why not?
That boss.
Yeah, and it sucks too because it's like Tevinter Knights and the comics do this really well. They really like go into the Dragon Age bits, the stuff that we know. Yeah. There's that horror in it, and it's great, but it's not in the game.
Yeah, it just seems like they forgot.
It's
like it like I almost can't chalk it up to they didn't have time. It almost just seems like they were so focused on telling a story they forgot to include blood mage bits or talking about the circle every once in a while, or everything we know about Tevinter. I don't know if you know this, as a Lord of Fortune, Rook drops that they were a Tevinter slave in like one line of dialogue. And I was like, oh, what? Huh?
Yeah. The only time you ever hear about that, other than that, is at the beginning whenever you're reading about your background. Like, that's the only time.
Yeah,
it's like,
just...
Oh, yeah. And I guess the, what's it called? What is it? Whenever you're in your room in the first time and you're going through all your items, that's the only time, yeah.
What item?
It's, it was an item, oh, shoot. It's the one where you, if you're a Lord of Fortune, you get a specific item that talks about your background.
Yeah, is it?
It's in the room. I can't remember it. It's been so long. I can't remember.
It's okay. It's okay. I know what you're talking about.
I haven't played Lords of Fortune in so long.
Yeah, I remember doing that, so I believe you. Yeah, I think there was I just like I'm cool with like playing an RPG and playing as a character that's written for me, like Geralt, for example. Like,
yeah,
there's things Geralt's not going to do, and there's things Geralt's going to do, and there's some gray in there, and I think like Witcher 3 lets you explore that. But I feel like there was like kind of like I bought this game thinking it was one thing and it's not. Like I think if they would have marketed that and like really plastered that to me, that hey, we're writing Rook from like a different kind of perspective. So the role-playing elements you kind of know aren't going to be as free, but like we hope you kind of like who we wrote here. I think that transparency would have been good because I think it gives players an expectation of like what this is. But then again, if you play Dragon Age and you play this and you're not looking at that stuff, you're going to be like, well, what's going on? Why can't I be mean at all as Rook? Why is Rook so marvelly written and they quip a lot? And it's like, okay, I'm okay with some of that here and there, but it's like, all right, I said something mean and I that was not mean at all.
Yeah.
Like what? Yeah. Like even if they wrote in, which would be pretty interesting, but like, with Tosh, if you were just like totally unsupportive of him, that would have been kind of cool to see written in a way that's like, how do you even go around that? How would you even begin to tackle that? Because that's that as a RPG, I guess that should be something, you can do. It's, like in Baldur's Gate 3, you can meet Karlach and hate her and kill her right then and there. Mm-hmm. It's that freedom that they like just kind of missed.
Yeah. I mean, for me, and this is definitely a, what's it called? An assessment based off what I know from being on the council. A lot of it tends to go into they had a story that they needed to tell after reboot with, and this is just my assessment, the possibility of never having another one again. So everything had to be directed in a way where they could tell a story that completes. Mm-hmm. And they got rid of Solus. I'm not got rid of Solus, but I mean they completed Solus's story. They completed the arc of like how everything went, and we learned the entire story of how Elvenon came to be, how Tevinter came to be, how the dwarves were basically sundered and made tranquil and everything. And it's just like, it was just kind of like, we either get this or we get nothing else.
Yeah. I mean, you say that, and I think you're right, but then, like, what's the secret ending? Like, in my opinion, that's supposed to be the last game. You know, I feel like to jump ahead to that ending, and I was, like, so, hype about it. I was like, fuck, yes. You know, and my mind's spinning, and I'm like, you know what would be cool? And nobody's ever done this. This is very fan servicey, but, like, hear me out. Let's get all the protagonists from all the games together and, like, they're a party. Like, everyone kind of wants. Like, that's never been done. Ever. And to think of, like, a game that did that, it's like, you know, how do you carry things over? It's like, well, what if you made 5 different companions at the start of the game? That's a lot. I hear you. It's a lot of character customization. Hey, like, release the character creator like 2 months in advance. Give everyone the time. But that would be so fucking cool.
Yeah. That would be insane.
And I think tying the game up and ending the Dragon Age is how you do it. That's how you do it. And I don't, you know, like, they clearly allude to something. Something's in the oven. But what is that something? Are we going to see that something? I don't think we know yet. I mean, obviously Mass Effect 5, is next. And you know, we probably won't, like, I guess we won't see Dragon Age for at least 3 or 4 years if they're going to do another. But
I would say longer, but yeah.
The thought of that actually, like, bothers me.
Yeah. No, it's like the secret ending is very much for me, it ends up being another arc in everything. Because although they say at the end the Veilguard will return.
Yeah, the most MC. Yeah, I was like, are you fucking kidding me? I was like, not even that I'm upset about that. And I'm like, did we really just do that? I know there's like tons of headlines about like Marvel writing. We're huge Marvel fans on this podcast. We watch and do everything Marvel, and I am very critical about Marvel. Like I'm so sick of it. But to see that, I was kind of like, are you kidding me? like,
what are we doing here? What are you guys doing?
Yeah, like, okay, sure. Sorry, I had totally interrupted you.
Oh, no. It's like, for that secret ending, it's very much another arc to everything. Because we wrapped up almost everything. The entire mystery of Dragon Age has already been revealed, right?
Yeah.
So for me, for the people across the sea and all that, it's like, yeah, that is another part of the game, but at the same time, we just close so much of
and at the same time, it opens so much more.
Yeah.
I was like, so you're telling me like the executors, which, you know, I totally forgot that they were a thing in Inquisition. I guess I just wasn't on the right Reddit posts and like reading about all this stuff. This was kind of new to me, and it's like, oh, okay, like, yeah, they were in Inquisition, and it's like, and they're behind like all these events and also the Black City stuff, and it's like it goes that far back, and I'm like, okay, that sounds cool, and I'm down. But like, I also love a good ending. I love when series like, we're gonna end it, you know, this is gonna be it. And I would love to see that with Dragon Age. I think it's just questionable about not if BioWare can do it, if EA thinks they can do it.
That's the real question, though.
Yeah, I mean,
that really is the real question.
I looked back to like, I'm like, what has BioWare even released in the last 10 years? And I'm like, Andromeda, Mass Effect Legendary Edition. Okay, nice influx of cash there. And it's like, and this.
Yeah.
Like, it's crazy. They have not released a lot. But then again, if you think back on it, well, you know, a lot's been going on with like switching up live service. Oh, Anthem. Totally forgot about Anthem.
I was waiting for it. I was like, are we going to talk about it?
Yeah,
are we going to talk about it?
I was looking at some of your videos from the past. I'm like, oh my God, you covered Anthem. Like, I probably watched a bit of that too, because I played the beta, but I didn't get on with it. And just thinking about where BioWare's come and what Inquisition was like, and that had some live service-ness to it, and it's open world and stuff like that. And like it's clear that for the last 10 years, BioWare has had to reshift from live service open world games. Mm-hmm. Like they're switching back to their pedigree of just not open world live service games.
Right? No, because it really is frustrating. Especially being involved so much in EA for the past how many years. Because other than being an EA creator and what used to be Game Changers, it's I know how EA is. I live in the Bay. I live in San Francisco. And I know how EA runs. They are a tech company at the end of the day. They are embedded in Silicon Valley. They want... Well, I'm not going to say they want money, but they want... Of course they
do. They're a company.
ROI. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's and the thing is, it's just kind of in this area, in the San Francisco Bay, it's so... it's such a stark shift into service as a subscription as a service, and everything is just so frustrating because... And this comes back to the conversation I had earlier, where it was making art for the sake of art, making it an extension of yourself. That isn't anything they want. They want gacha. They want gambling. They want things that make money on a consistent basis.
Right.
And it's we are going to see, unless if it's in the indie space, which is also affected by the economy. I'm not going to talk about politics, I swear to God. But
no, it's okay.
Yeah, but it's very much to see games come back to, okay, this is an RPG and we're going to be an RPG. I don't think we're actually, and this is my assessment, I don't think we're actually going to get that going forward. I think mass might be the end of it.
Really?
I'm hoping not. I'm really hoping not.
I mean, you would kind of assume they're opening a new can of worms with whatever the new Mass Effect's going to be, if it's going to be another trilogy with Shepard or those characters. You can't imagine they're just doing one game, That's not how you maximize profit, Ash. That's not how you do it. You don't just make one game.
Well, it's a matter of that, we can have RPGs, but what are you going to add on top of it if it's not going to be, it should have a series, it should have different transmedia where it's oh, are we going to have a TV series? Are we going to have a movie? Are we going to have a whole bunch of merch? It's where's the monetization strats going down?
You just reminded me because I picked up on this while I was playing Veilguard. What was the show called? Not Absolution. Was it Absolution? Mm-hmm. It was. Okay. And I was the Meredith ending with that, and that went nowhere. I'm was that in Joplin or Morrison? Where the fuck did that come from? And I know their dagger being the lyrium dagger being was the lyrium idol from 2? Oh my god. But I think what you're talking about is a problem with AAA game development. And someone I shared in my Discord something I saw on Twitter, and it was Rockstar's output since the beginning. And since LA Noire and GTA 4, that was in 2011, so 2009 to 2011, I think LA Noire was 2011, they have released 3 games. GTA 5 and Red Dead Redemption 2. That's fucking it. And EA and BioWare, I've also gone that route. They used to publish a lot more games, a lot more frequently. I love Dragon Age 2. I get it was made in 7 months. I still think it's a fantastic game. Yeah. Do you go to the same areas a lot? Yeah, of course. But I still, the game was written excellently. I love Hawk as a character. I think they really found their Shepard with Hawk in Dragon Age. I think that game is fucking stellar. And I like Inquisition for a lot of different kind of reasons. One thing with Dragon Age is it's never been, when people say oh, it doesn't feel like Dragon Age, I'm do you even know what Dragon Age feels like? Because every game is very different.
Dragon Age doesn't know what Dragon Age feels like.
I like to remind people, the series has never been the same, in any way, shape, or form, besides the dialogue wheel that came in with 2. Like the gameplay's always been very different. Veilguard is like a mix of Inquisition and 2. I think you were like beginning to say that when we were talking about the combat, but that's how I felt about it. And I love Dragon Age 2's combat. It was so visceral. I love like powering through people as the two-handed warrior. And just like chopping people up. And I miss the blood not being on you in Veilguard. I actually like.
Oh yeah.
I
miss the gore.
I've been meaning to do this all week. Is Veilguard T or M?
It's M.
That's insane. What's it right? M for? There's no nudity. There's no blood. What's it M for?
There is some nudity, but it depends on who you romance, which is the problem.
I mean, going into that, it's just like, I romanced Nev, and I just felt like that relationship was kind of weak. And I was like, I wonder how the rest of them are. And I didn't get a chance to look them up and kind of watch them, but I was just like really upset with romancing Nev. I was between Nev and Bellara. And I felt like Bellara was too Tally-like, and I didn't want to like, if it's a discount Tally, I don't want it.
Dang.
Because I love Tally. Tally's like everything to me from Mass Effect 2. So I was like, okay, Nev seems kind of cool. I like her like one leg. That's cool. Also, sorry, I'm going on tangents here. Nev being disabled was really interesting because I feel like they do it the opposite with Tosh. Is Tosh talks about being non-binary a lot. Nev has one leg and talks about it like once or twice. It's interesting how they decided to go about that, because like you think a character with one leg, we have to point it out and talk about it and talk about the trauma behind it. But like Nev kind of seems all right with it. And like it comes up like once or twice. I know there's like a dialogue between Tosh and Nev about like decorating it, which I found kind of cool. But like,
that was cute.
It's like, we're not like limiting Nev because of like this disability, but yet, Tosh's whole character is written around them being non-binary. It's like interesting direction of like almost kind of a similar issue of just being like different.
I feel like with Tasha's though, it's very much a not knowing how to word. Like she's very incapable. Like whenever she's a she and she's trying to figure out everything, it's kind of like oh, okay, like I need to converse this out and Rook points it out. Tasha's not able to really word what they want to say. Like, it's just, constantly distracting herself from themselves from like actually saying the real words that they want to confess to.
I'm glad we came back around to Tosh, because I did want to say I love the way it all ends with their arc. Like it felt very satisfying when their mom says I forget what the wording is, but she recognizes her pronouns and who she is or who they are. And also the Quinari Ravani not knowing what do I want to be here? Like I think like the way the character is written is very good in a like full picture kind of sense. I think it's very good. And I felt like this was kind of opposite of being progressive when I was like, Tosh, embrace the Quinari stuff. I'm like, maybe that's not like right, but I feel like, there's a dialogue when you first meet Tosh, and Rook is commenting on the ropes. And it's like, why even wearing them if you don't care? It is interesting. And like the fact that they chose to include that dialogue about like, well, like, are you Quinari or are you not? Like, they really do seem kind of like in both worlds.
Yeah, because for that whole conversation, honestly, I did not like the fact that we had to choose whether to embrace Ravani or Quinari.
It's like
I really did not like it.
Multi or biracial. It's like you can only be white or black. You got to choose.
Right?
It's like that's basically what you just
embrace both cultures. What's going on?
Right? Yeah. It's like a lot of people do that in a lot of different senses. Yeah. To tell them it's like you can't be both.
Yeah. It was just like, why are you separating this? Like,
Yeah,
Tosh,
I agree.
They can take both. It's not a big deal. I understand the direction of where it was going, but it was just it felt very unnecessary for it. It just seemed like, oh, we have to have two different decisions, similar to everyone else. Like every companion has like a very specific decision. Like with Lucanus, does he go after family or does he go after killing his cousin? Like
in a game that's all about decisions that, well, you would think is all about decisions, that doesn't have a lot of actual decisions to make. You know, like in the grand scheme of things, like I think the Minrathos Trivos is your biggest decision in the game, which I don't care about the decision making, like in the grand scheme of things. But I guess when you expect it and you don't get it, that's what kind of bothers me. So yeah. For there to be a lot of decision making that pretty much amounts to nothing, like picking between Dorian and that other character to be the Archon was like a moment for me. I'm like, holy shit. Here we are. Do I pick my boy, Dorian Pavus? We go way back, you know? Like, how can I not pick him? But I'm like, you know, and that's where I'm like, all right, I got to look it up, see what happens. and then,
right?
To make sure I pick the right thing, and it like amounts to nothing. And I'm like, fuck. What? Yeah. What do you mean?
Well, it does amount to at the end where it's like, oh, if he actually gets in or not. So that there's at least that. But it's like, in my head, it was just very much a trying to get all the decisions in a row where, okay, if there's another game after this, we can at least have an easier time importing the decisions over versus like that's how, if you know, obviously Keep is a whole different situation.
I was kind of like, you know, I kind of expected them to not do the Keep thing. I know there was a lot of uproar about that, but it's like, what can you do, man? It's like, not like, I get it. Like, let's be realistic here. That's like insane. What they did with the Inquisition was like, probably like their max of like, okay, we're really doing this. But like, I don't know if we can do this again kind of thing.
Well, the unfortunate part is they did have a bunch of the ones that were initially going to get switched over. And it's left in the game code. You can actually look at it. Yeah.
That's so cool, but sucks at the same time.
Exactly. We could have had the world, but you know. Yeah. And it's unfortunate because it's like, oh man, just leave it for another game, I guess. Right?
Yeah.
Like,
I just thinking of, I know I don't know how much time you have, and I don't want to, you know, go on for forever. But I know.
Yeah, all good.
Yeah, one thing I did have, I was talking about it with Treviso, how I felt, and like Minrathos and the cities. I didn't really love all the zones, even though there's a very diverse amount of them. They just kind of didn't feel like what I needed them to be. And I was just thinking about the Anderfels and, you know, again, hearing so much about this place and then going to it and then kind of just being like, well, it's like, you know, a hallway with a town and it's not, it like doesn't really make me feel good. But like in Dragon Age Inquisition, like I was one of those people who was in the Hinterlands for like 50 hours in the beginning. And I beat the game and I got all the achievements. Like I'm that kind of person. So it's not like I got lost in the Hinterlands and never got out of it. Like I appreciated that. But then again, I only played Inquisition twice. I played Dragon Age Origins and 2 like 10 times. And there's a real clear, there's a reason why. But yeah, I don't know if you kind of felt that with like the non-town zones that they just, like, I think Arlethin is probably the coolest. And it felt like the first one they did. There was like a lot of attention there about like, you know, the
it was their hinterlands, but it was stuff. More spicy.
For sure. Yeah, it's a good way to put it, I think.
Yeah. No, I very much for me, I definitely have played 2. Well, actually, no, I played an incessant amount of 2. But for Inquisition, I played maybe like 3 times, like absolutely, like all the way through, like complete. You know, I played Trespasser like many times, but that's a whole different thing.
For sure.
But like for Veilguard, it's because the thing is that there are a lot of changes if you do a lot of the different decisions. But it's only at the end that you can actually see any of it. So like you can do one where you get everybody killed. You can do an ending where you only kill some of them. Like, that's great. But also, like, I think there's replayability, but at the same time, it's like, if you play your canon first, I don't think you're inclined to actually play it all the way through.
Oh my God, Ash, you hit the nail on the fucking head. It's really hard for me to play these games again because I feel like I have my canon and it's like hard for me to like deviate from it. Especially with Dragon Age. I have this like way that I want things to go and like my perfect save kind of thing. To bring back like the keep terminology, you know, like I just felt like I'm like, yeah, I have like different variations, but like I have my canon save, and like I don't feel like Veilguard really plays into that. Like I can't play again with like knowing like, you know, everything before mattered. I really don't think Veilguard has a ton of replayability, to be honest. Like going back to those choices, and I think that's a knock to the game where, you know, all three of the other games have a ton of replayability value. I think the replay is really just in your class, what class you pick. I don't really think like the big choices like really garner another playthrough.
Yeah, I think for me, Minrathous versus Treviso is definitely the main thing that I'm like, okay, I'm going to go back and play it.
Yeah.
Even though it's absolutely painful, I don't want to make Lucanus angry, but he's a whole different person when you do it. So it's like, okay, sure.
How many times did you play the game?
Oh my God.
Well, I guess how many characters did you make, and maybe how many times did you beat it?
4, but like, I have played Act 1 so many times, both the real version and also the council, like, before. So it's like, I can play it with my eyes closed at that point, but like for 2 and 3, like, completed 4. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I wasn't sure. I knew you played it multiple times, but I wasn't sure, but yeah.
Yeah, yeah, so... for me, I also watch a lot of people play, so that there's like I can get my satisfaction from other people playing because I know, and I'm gonna watch them freak out and like do all the things. So it's like I'm not gonna play it through again because I can just watch a different reaction.
That's something I haven't done yet, and I've been consuming a lot of Jackdaw's content since his was spoilery stuff and like listening to him talk about it, but I'm like, I need to watch some streams because I just want to see stuff that I'm not gonna do and somebody else do, and like see their reactions, and like that's their canon rook, so they're really invested in it. So watching that is probably more valuable than me trying to make all these different decisions that I'm like,
there's something about there's something about not having control over the certain decisions. So you're watching them like go into the fire and be like, oh, you're gonna freak out at this, like,
yeah. I definitely need to make a mental note to watch like the romances and stuff. Did you explore a lot of the romances, or was it just
Davern, Lucanus, Harding, and Tosh? So, yeah,
I do like how the characters start relationships with each other. Kind of like how Garrus and Tally do in Mass Effect 3. That's pretty cool. I think that makes a lot of sense. It feels like your characters are like, again, like people developing like relationships with one another. And I like how like, you know, Davern and Lucanus don't get along. It's kind of interesting that Tosh, you know, calls Emmerich a death mage, something he doesn't want to be called, is kind of interesting. Like, I'm like, really? Like, isn't that like kind of hypocritical? Like, I thought that was really strange. But I feel like some of their banters, like when the characters have like fights, they feel like very high schoolish. Like, you know, they're in like these very petty qualms. They don't really feel like adults having issues. They feel like teenagers having issues. And Rook's got to break it up, you know? Yeah.
For Tosh, it makes sense because Tosh is young. They're like...
Yes, I actually got. I'm like, Tosh is in her early 20s. They reek of it. And that's fine. I think that makes total sense. If Tosh was in their 40s, I'm like, kind of doesn't. Yeah, this is kind of weird. You're like well into your life. We were all in our 20s. It's a weird time. You're figuring yourself out as an adult. So.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Like for some of the conversation, I'm like, I've seen grown adults have these conversations.
Yeah. So okay. Let's not get too real.
No, but like. Yeah, I get that. No, like the arguments and the way that they converse with each other, it's very much a Rook being the boss thing, which is why I like mentioned the thing earlier. I was like, oh,
that's a good point. I didn't really like. I don't even think I saw the Inquisitor as that, even though the Inquisitor is the fucking boss. You know, like,
right?
Like majorly, like written in the story. Like not only are they the boss, they could be like Andraste's chosen, like you know, the character.
Where led all the armies and like in Veilguard, and it's like, oh, okay, like the badass, the commander, literally.
Question in terms of the lore, did you disband the Inquisition?
Yes, I did. Oh. I did that mainly because I figured Solus would put his agents inside the Veilguard, at least, you know, pre-Veilguard actually releasing. That was my perspective. Okay. Because I didn't trust Solus.
I was all about, like, I like the Veilguard, I like the Inquisition as an organization. I kind of like those organizations that oversee shit that's like above the politics, sort of like Shield and Marvel. Like I like Shield as a organization, but they fucking get rid of it and they never bring it back, and I fucking hate that. So I couldn't. I'm like, no, dude. Inquisition, it's gotta remain. So does that change anything? Like what does that do in Veilguard?
It's very like. It's not like, really.
I disbanded it, but I got it back together. You know.
Whenever you're progressing through the story, the Inquisitor does a whole bunch of letters to you. Yeah. So it's briefly mentioned, if I remember correctly, but like as far as what you're able to see, it doesn't, to my knowledge, really come into play. I'm trying to remember if any of it does.
So like it's interesting why they even make you pick that option in the beginning of disbanding it or leaving it if it doesn't matter.
I think it was just like it depends on how the Inquisitor handles it. It's more of the conversations that they actually have. Because there's that one where she talks about everything that the Inquisition has been doing up until then. Right. Like talking about what is it? Sebastian being the Prince of Starkhaven, even though I definitely did not put that in my game, but sure.
I was like, that's mentioned for me in one of the war table things, I remember. But I don't know if that's a decision. It
just ended up the way it was. It got canoned.
Yeah. Which I was okay with. Not
but
that
there's
I
like other stuff. But. Yeah, I didn't like Sebastian. I just thought he was really funny whenever everyone made fun of him.
I just was like, nah, dude, we can't kill Anders. And I'm like, you gotta stay though, you know. Right? I need that reputation points. You know, it's so funny. I bring up Anders. Like, I would love to see Anders come back. That would be cool. Yeah. Like, especially someone who like, I think ignited everything that's going on, like the Mage Templar War. I think that I know you can kill him. But I think that'd be really cool to bring him back. And I was really like, I want to see everyone, you know, Aveline's Viscount of Kirkwall now. I'm like, I really just want to see these characters again. And again, have this moment of finality where like the series is ending here. A very Mass Effect 3 kind of thing where like whatever happens with Dragon Age is fine. But like we're ending the Dragon Age, and this event is like the culmination of like origins to whatever this hopefully next game is going to be.
Yeah.
I
do want what you said, which is basically like all the player characters coming back and all that. I'm just very much cool. I'm a pessimist. I'm sorry. I'm just kind of like I see where the industry is going now, and I'm like, I don't think we'll ever have any budget that would be anything like how we had it in 2014.
Yeah.
2015. I feel like that was like the era of, we can throw money at these certain things.
Well, I mean, hey, EA, some of, you know, EA's branches are doing pretty good. Respawn has been done well with the Jedi games, Survivor and Fallen Order. Apex has made them a lot of money. Joseph Ferris's games have been pretty successful. Like, I get BioWare as a company probably hasn't been doing well, but EA has a lot more revenue makers. So I feel like, fans want more. It's just, I don't know what's going on with BioWare. I know a lot's changed. I didn't was it the game director, art director just left like a few days ago?
Oh, the game director. Yeah. Kareen left.
Yeah.
So yeah, Kareen has another thing planned. So
yeah,
and
yeah. I know
it was
wasn't
to be
like a
expected
layoff or anything like that.
Yeah, it's one of those like it's time kind of thing.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I know a lot of people are like treating it as if they left, then it's the end
done.
of times.
Yeah.
And it's like,
Casey
no,
Hudson
that's not how it works.
Left and came back, and I don't. Maybe Casey Hudson was the reason shit was going so well. Like I don't want to think that, but
No.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to like pin it on one person.
Yeah. So I'll just put it into, I'll just say it here. And it's just basically like, after watching everything unfold within the last, how long have I been covering BioWare? 2013.
Wow.
Yeah, it's been a bit.
Since I was in high school, because that's when Dragon Age 2 came out.
Oh my God.
Yeah. I'm
for
gonna
me,
be 30 this year. If that gives you any context.
Happy early birthday. Yeah, no, it's like with everything, BioWare has just kind of like suffered under not having one core identity for most of, not identity, I should say, having the leadership lead in a way that they could take hold of one specific identity going forward. I think Mass Effect tends to keep itself isolated from everything, so it works out really well that they're able to keep the idea of Mass Effect stable. But so I'm actually like looking forward to the next game. But at the same time, it's like with Dragon Age, it has passed through so much leadership troubles. It's passed through so much where its vision has changed in so many different hands that it, we did get Veilguard, but at what cost?
Who was the BioWare dev? He was a Dragon Age guy. He coined the term BioWare magic.
Oh God.
What's his name? You know what I'm talking about, though, right?
Well, I don't know if he was the first to do it because everyone used it there.
Yeah, okay. He was the first.
It's either Dara or
Mark Dara. Yeah, it's Mark Dara.
There it is.
Yeah, because he was on an episode of Defining Duke, which is an Xbox podcast, and I don't know what he was on there to talk about or why. I think he was just like, he wasn't there to promote anything. I think he was on there talking about it, but that was the first time I heard about it. And I think he started making his own videos. Like
they're pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah, and him kind of being like, I forget exactly what the thing is. Isn't there like a hockey stick analogy or some shit like that? I don't know. But he was like talking about this, and he said whatever that magic was, it's gone. So like that's the reason you have Andromeda and Anthem at the time. Just talking about like their issues. I didn't love Andromeda. I'm not gonna lie, and it had a lot of issues. But I would love to play Andromeda again now, and it's probably its best form, and like re-experience it. I also think I played it wrong. I didn't utilize like the multiple classes thing because I was like, that's stupid. I don't want to do that, and I think that fucked me up. Like I think I was just playing that game wrong, and I know that sounds ridiculous, but I think there are ways to play certain games incorrectly. I think Starfield is another example of a game you can play incorrectly. But anyway, yeah.
Yeah, no, it's funny bringing up Mass Effect Andromeda because that also was subject to the same situation where it was like there was a vision, but it was not executed. And you need someone to be at the helm going, we're going to go this direction. All of us are going to be together. And you need that leader to be able to advocate for the writers, for the talent. And by talent, I mean like the actual devs that are under their wing.
Yeah.
And that is, as the years go on, very hard to do. Kareen did a great job with what she had to deal with. So
yeah. I mean, it's funny. We've both been very critical of this game, but I can genuinely tell we both like this game. It's just like it's not my favorite Dragon Age by any stretch of the imagination. I think it's my least favorite. Yeah, I mean, like I love Origins 2 and Inquisition, and it's like I think this is the game I had the most issues with. So it just naturally has to be last. It doesn't mean I really dislike it. It's just kind of like I always say this, like I've been playing a lot of my Marvel Rivals recently, and in trying to be sort of like positive, like with like when people are being DPS, I'm like, well, if 3 people are playing DPS, somebody is going to be last. Doesn't mean that person's bad. It just means that person just didn't perform as well as the others. You know, yeah. It's like when like it's just how it is, like objectively.
Mm-hmm. It's just like you can have the best in the world, but it's not that they're bad. It's just that that's the ones involved. I don't know. I'm like trying to like think, because it's like for me, I really like Veilguard, but looking back on it, I like it for very personal reasons that like going through the years why I like it. Because like Inquisition's still to this day my least favorite, but I loved it so much. So it's like in a very similar like it's an amazing game, but like I definitely like it way less than Veilguard.
I have 3 more things I want to hit before we close out, because we haven't touched on any of these 3 things. The music kind of sucked. Oh
yeah, I actually had to agree with that.
Yeah, kind of like
I mean,
really
it's good,
sucked.
but like, it's not.
When the Inquisitors, the motif from Inquisition came on with the Inquisitor, I was like, freaking out. I'm like, let's go.
Yeah.
like I'm like so ready, and like Inquisition soundtrack and Lost Elf and
I bought the vinyl for it. It killed me to listen to Lost Elf and everything. I was like, oh my God.
And they got Hans Zimmer to do the fucking main theme, and it's like not that good. It's like, it was just like, like no track stood out. I have to listen to the whole soundtrack like back to back. Mm-hmm. But yeah, not good. The other 2.
I mean, it's all right, but it's not like, it doesn't get you to your core. It's not, it doesn't hit.
Journey to Skyhold changed me. Every track in Inquisition, like Einon Zur killed it. Like I don't know why they didn't bring him back. I'm pretty confident Einon Zur did Inquisition, right?
Well, and Sam Holick? Wait. I'm getting
someone else did Trespass, or wasn't Einon Zur. I think that's what you're on to. Yeah, let me check.
I'm literally, I just pulled up Spotify. I was like, wait, hold on. I don't want to be wrong on this.
It's Trevor Morris. Trevor
Morris. Oh my God, not Sam. Oops.
Yeah, Einon Zur did 2, and I think 1. That's what it is. Okay. The other 2 things. We haven't talked about Varric not one fucking time, which is interesting.
That's true. Oh, whoops.
I didn't see that coming at all. And I'm sitting here and I'm like, how the fuck did I not notice that? I'm like, I thought that was a very cool move. You know, that like he's in your head kind of thing. And like, not that, like you just didn't like, you got hit in the head and you didn't remember. Like, no, Solus like made you see that. I like, that's cool. I really like that.
I love the concept of that, because it was like blood magic is more insidious than you realize. And that was like, that was one of those like, oh, okay, I can see the message here. This is great. I miss Varric. I really do.
I think killing characters off. I don't know. Are you a Final Fantasy fan?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, specific Final Fantasies.
Have you played 4?
No, I haven't.
Okay, so I was playing the Pixel remaster of 4, and Final Fantasy 4 loves to pretend kill off characters just to bring them back. I think it's really powerful when a game like knows how to kill a character and like not just keep them around or be like, oh, fake death, haha, I'm back, just kidding. I think the ability to write a death in and making it meaningful is really good. That's why I liked when Harding died, and I think I like that Varric died. Like the fact that I'm like, someone's, they gotta go eventually. So not everyone lives, and I think Varric, even the way he looks in Veilguard, I think this was in the art book, but like I noticed it playing the game. Like, he does not look like the, pompous. He's not pompous, but he's got, he has that attitude about him in Dragon Age 2. Like, even the way he dresses, like, the way he's
a merchant. He got to play the part.
He looks rich. He looks regal. And he he likes to have a nice little vest with his leather jacket, but and he looks totally distraught in this game. Like he's really been journeying with like a single goal in mind and not really worrying about what he looks like anymore. And I think that's character progression if I've ever seen it.
Yeah, he's been going through the ringer, and like even in the comics, it goes through it, and it's just like he's been there for the longest, right? And he is the storyteller behind it. Yeah. Like who is telling the story if not Varric?
Yeah, he's kind of like the spoilers, Tony Stark dying in Avengers. Like he was there with Hawk, he was there with the Inquisitor, he was there with Rook. Like he has kind of like ties and everything besides the Warden. Unfortunately, also. No Sandal? Come on.
Oh, I'm sad about that. Yeah.
Like that scene, but now that like they planted the Executor thing, it's like, is this what we're talking about, Sandal? Is this what you refer to? Like you're going to come back? Yeah. Like, again, some of those threads that I think like, I know he wasn't in Inquisition, right? Neither Bodan or Sandal was.
He had a codex entry. There was a diary in Trespasser.
Yeah, and it's just like there's a lot of like going back to that, that conversation we had like an hour ago about like these Dragon Age-y things not being there. Like that was another one of them. It's like, like don't forget about that because you set something up. So like finish it, man. Anyway, yeah, I think Varric was well done. I was actually thought he was a companion before I got the game.
Oh,
like genuinely. I didn't go dark on the marketing, but sometimes when I like a game, it's like I don't need to see more. I know I'm getting it. I bought the Rook's Coffer edition. I'm in.
It's gonna happen anyway, so might as well.
Right. I guess I saw him on the box. I'm like, oh, he's a companion. Why do you have two bow companions? That's I'm like that's the first thing I thought. I'm like Harding and Varric both use bows. That's interesting. Anyway, and the other thing we only mentioned, I don't think I've said Elgar'nan or Gilganane once in this podcast, but I wanted to talk about them as villains and final bosses. One thing I was watching Angry Joe's review of this game.
Oh boy.
I like Angry Joe. I think he can be angry and verbose, but I think he's got some good points. And he reviewed Dragon Age 2 and Inquisition back in the day. Probably not Origins, but I loved his Dragon Age 2 review. But they had this bit at the beginning of the review where they were like, one of them was Rook and he had two other friends with him and they were, companions, and they were like, oh, are we going to go kill the two gods, Elgar'nan and Gilganane? How about, the gods, Elgar'nan and Gilganane? And they kept saying their names over and over and over again. And I was like, yeah, they do say their names a lot, the gods, Elgar'nan and Gilganane. Like, I'm like, yeah, it is kind of funny. Like, now that I think about it, like they do just say their names all the time.
Yeah, because it's like, for new players, right? You're supposed to actually like present them in a way where the player remembers, oh, Elgar'nan, Gilganane, the gods. This is what you're supposed to be doing. But it's like, okay, especially coming from like the past games. It's like, I get it. I play the game. I put it in the beginning of the game that I played the game.
You know what's funny? I didn't really recall them from. I'm sure there's tons of codex entries about them, but I didn't really recall them off the top of my head. Unlike with like Solus, like I remember Meryl, saying, "May the Dreadwolf take you," because I certainly won't. Like I knew who Fen'Harel was. Like I'm like, oh yeah. But with Gillanane and Elgar'nan, like I didn't feel like I'm like I don't. Okay, yeah, I trust that they've been here, but like I don't remember them off the top of my head.
Yeah, and most Gillanane, and it was mentioned more in Origins. Trespasser was probably the closest as far as like actually speaking about them, but you really had to go through and get all the audio logs, right?
Yeah.
In order to do it.
Yeah.
And also, oh my God, in Tevinter Nights, whenever they Horrors of Hormak, man, like that chapter. Wait, you haven't read it, right?
No. I don't think I knew it existed until this game came out. And I think it's came out a few years ago, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That
That's
that
probably
really
why.
set the tone. My God. But at the same time, same problem. It's in the book, not in the game.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think I liked them well enough. I think Corypheus kind of suffers from I'm a big bad and I don't really like do anything besides I'm a big bad. Like, unfortunately, even though he was set up in Legacy in Dragon Age 2,
Yeah.
he just
Loved
is
him
like,
in Legacy.
yeah, he's just like, I am an old bad guy, and like, am I a darkspawn? Like, no, probably just a powerful mage, just like Elganon and Gilganane are, which is cool. I kind of like that humanization of the bad guys, and to know that like the Evanuris is not, they aren't gods, they're just really powerful elven mages, and I kind of like them, but like, and I think that the final fight is cool, and Gilganane looks pretty fucking horrific.
Yeah.
But
I love the bodyguard.
yeah, there was something about it that I think like it just like it wasn't like Knight Commander Meredith is a good villain and they build her up very uniquely. Like she's not in a lot of the game, but then like that final act, like, she's very present.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just like, maybe you can have the words where I don't. There's just something about them that I didn't dislike them, but I didn't love them.
It was because they were presented to us throughout the course. We saw their evolution, right? And which is why I really wanted Solus to be that last enemy for a lot of it. And he technically was, but not to the extent, like, for instance, the art book, whenever they mentioned the possibility of Solus, like, bringing out a Titan at the end of the fight, I wanted that. I was hoping for that. But anyway, I think a lot of it is that we don't see the humanity in a lot of the villains. Like their humanity, or I guess, for the lack of a better word, it is very present in the game, or I mean Meredith and Solus, like their whole like humanity is presented to us throughout the course of the game, versus you have Elgarnon and Gilganane. You only hear from them in whenever it's the cutscene and that one tree in the crossroads.
Yeah, especially Elgarnon.
Yeah,
he's like really absent.
Yeah. And it's like, cool. I get the stakes, but it's like, okay, this is just a guy to kill.
He's a beefy elf boy too. I've never seen an elf look like that in my life, and I kind of liked it.
Yeah,
because it's like, I think like Solus is your very stereotypical looking elf with hair or without. Yeah, and I was just like, oh, he's like big. Like,
it's okay. It's just a wig.
I also at the same time with Gilganane, I was like, take off the mask. Like, what's under there? What's going on?
Oh yeah. No, I'm kind of glad that they showed at least in the flashback to Gilganane and like everything. But it's like, needed more of that.
I love how she brought like the archdemons up. So there were 2 blights going on at the same time, right? So it's the 6th and the 7th blight?
Yeah.
Technically? Okay. Again, oh, thank God I remembered. The way they use the term blight is not the same in the other games. They never refer to the blight as like, oh, it's blighted. Like it was always the blight. This is the blight. Like the way they talk about it is much different, because at first I was like, why are they using blight in like I know you would say like the proper noun, but the non-proper noun. Like,
I feel like
blighted, and like, like I'm like, what? And like, that's not how they say it.
I would say it progressed starting with 2, because they did end up saying that, especially in the DLCs. They were using it more as a verb than an actual
as a verb. Yeah.
Yeah.
Instead of a proper noun. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like the progression of like how vernacular works, right? Like it's kind of like it developed over time, and I don't know if I completely agree with it, but I mean, it's a vibe.
Maybe I forgot, because I think and they were just using it so much that I was just like, I'm like, did I like forget this? I'm like, Yeah, I'm like, they always talked about the blight as like the proper noun blight, and then they never used the proper noun blight. So I'm like, wait, is there a blight going on or not? Oh, there's an archdemon, so I guess there is. Yeah, and I'm remembering so many things that I wanted to talk about that I almost forgot. I hate the Darkspawn in this, the way they look. Oh my god, really annoyed. I they've changed them up every single game, but this, I was just like, I get why they're disformed and stuff, and I think that's cool, but I think like scrapping the Dragon Age 2 aesthetic that they kind of established with them was kind of lame.
I felt, well, I think it's just because of the art style that everything got shifted a little bit differently. I was okay with it, mainly because it was like, I don't know, it's like, I don't know how to describe it, but like,
yeah, it's the Pixar look. It's the Pixar look, and they all have that. I hated that image of the art book where Cullen looks like a Chad, and like what they did to him. I was like, what the fuck did you do to him? You know, you can make your characters look really pretty. And I had short hair as my character, and Ashe, when I saw your character, I was like, what am I missing out with that fucking hair? You know, like I'm like, I look so much more base compared to like everybody else. I was like, I really fucked up not having like a nice head of like long hair, because the hair looks awesome. But yeah, I think you're right. I think like that's why they look the way they do. I don't really think any of the enemies stand out to me. I hate how the Antom are all like beefy as shit. Like I found that kind of weird. Like giants, like all of them. Like, you know, like I'm like, like that's not what, like the Quinari are big, but they're not like fucking like colossi over here.
Yeah. Although I will say the Butcher was probably like the craziest. Like, oh man, they did well with that one. He was unnerving.
Yeah,
in a good way.
yeah, I would agree. And again, when we saw one without its mask, I was like, oh, you look so like plain. You don't look like the Air Shock. And I know like the rest of the Quinari and 2 look like are the same model, but like, and I was thinking about it. And I'm like, I didn't really love the Venatori. They didn't really like everything about all the enemy designs. Like, just didn't do anything for me.
It wasn't I didn't mind it, but at the same time, it's like I knew I was just gonna like barrel through them and just getting killed kind of thing. So I don't really look at the dead.
For sure. But then when I like sat there and like thought about it, it's like, nah, like no one's sticking out for me. I don't really feel like, again, it's like, okay, like just do the combo thing with every fucking attack you do. Like the gameplay kind of felt like samey there too. It's like not all the factions had like differences in fighting them. They all kind of,
it was just kind of hack and slash in certain aspects.
Here's a different skin, go fight. Use the same skills over and over again. But
yeah, the only time I ever actually felt like not like scared, but like fearful was whenever you're doing the fight before Harding gets her powers. Because I was like, that shriek, it was like chasing them and then having to deal with the chaos of that. That was the only time where I'm like, oh crap, here's all the things happening. But that never really comes back.
That's another thing that I didn't love with Veilguard. It's like Kalsharok dwarves. There's like no dwarves in this game. None. Like, did we forget? What happened? Like, it's kind of lame. Like there are Quinari, but like not a lot. And it's just like, I wish we could see more like NPC dwarves, because I just feel like I didn't see them, and we didn't interact with the Kalsharok dwarves, and that's a big deal as you're aware. And like, I just felt like, again, there could have been more. I really wish
we had more Kalsharok.
Like what the fuck? I bet someone will listen. Like, if you're listening this far and you like haven't played this game, I don't know what you're doing, but like it probably sounds like I don't like the game. I think it's just I was telling you when I first like contacted you to do this, it's like, it's not that I dislike the game. I'm just very critical about this stuff as a fan. And it's just like my expectations for everything were not out of whack, but like on a lore and world level, they were not what I expected.
Yeah, there's a thing. It's coming from a good place. Like for me, I love the games. I really do. And Veilguard has a very specific like love in my heart. But at the same time, it's like, well, I'm still very critical because I have been here for this long, because I care about the progression of this game. I mean, obviously I like, like the people at Bioware, I like them, and like and I like Mass Effect. But at the same time, Dragon Age has such a specific it's
vibe.
It really does.
I agree. I like both, but I like Dragon Age more. And I don't talk about Dragon Age enough. When I encounter people who play it, it's like when I encounter people who are like Metal Gear fans, I'm like, it's like, it's like, we're gonna be good friends, but all that said, I feel like that's kind of it for me. I mean, I don't feel like we need to sum anything up. I feel like we've done a lot of summing up and a lot of really good discussions. So I don't have anything else to say. If you do, feel free, but
I mean, thank you for having me. I mean, I haven't really talked about Dragon Age since it came out, since I made my last video, and I was just like, I've been mourning it pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, like I said to you, I was the same way. It's like I don't have a lot of friends who play Dragon Age. My co-host played Inquisition, and I would usually like, even if sometimes we'll review a game where like I didn't play it, but he did, and we'll talk about it. I can easily do that and like not know the story and still like engage with that. But I'm like, this is and I'm like, I was like, oh, it's interesting because like you bought Inquisition not playing any other Dragon Age. And I was really kind of curious of like why he didn't with this one, but I guess it was kind of obvious. But when we were talking about it, it was like, like this is gonna be like a deeper conversation. Like you're just gonna be like sitting here being like, like I don't want to subject you through that. So getting to talk about Dragon Age after 102 hours on the hardest difficulty and getting all the achievements was something I definitely wanted to do. So I'm glad you came on as well. So I do appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Dragon Age is Dragon Age, so I'm really glad we got to talk about it.
Yeah, it's a special game, and I hope we get at least one more. Let's finish it. Let's finish it up strong. Like I said, I feel like games coming to an end. I love when shit ends. I feel like it's such a good, it's just like to finish things up and like to kind of say goodbye. It feels good when. I'm a Kingdom Hearts fan too, and it's just like that series is still going, and it does. I kind of look at it and it's like, would it have been better if it just like really definitively ended? Maybe, I don't know, but not everything needs to continue. So, I think that with Mass Effect 3, they kind of like thought they were gonna end it, and then it's like, money.
One more story.
So Ash, where can people find you on the interwebs? Plug whatever you'd like.
I'm Lady Insanity on YouTube, Blue Sky, and X. And I've been visibly inactive because I'm on another project, but I'm still there. So for now, I'm just keeping mum about a lot of things, but
awesome.
That's where I can be.
Cool. And thanks again. And I'll do our little intro or outro. Normally, you can find us streaming our reviews live at twitch.tv/Delco Nerd Network, but for this time, we did not do that. You can find our podcast anywhere podcasts are found. Just search Delco Nerd Network at youtube.com/Delco Nerd Network, and anywhere with an @sign at Delco Nerds, as well as Facebook and the stuff without an @ usually we're on it, and TikTok's still around, and you can find all this information on delconerdnetwork.com. You can also find our email address there, delconerds@gmail.com. You can email us with your comments, questions, concerns, things for the good of the group, that sort of thing. For Ash, my name's Anthony Ragucci. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time. Stay nerdy.